Welcome to the overview of the State Clerk nomination and election process. My name is Andrew Yeager-Buckley, your moderator and webinar organizer. Our panelist is Dennis Hughes, Committee Moderator of the State Clerk Nomination Committee. He has been State Clerk of the Presbytery of Seattle for 15 years and has served in pastorates in New York, Indiana, Colorado, and Washington State, where since 1995 he has been pastor of Northminster Presbyterian Church in Seattle, Washington. And we are grateful to have Dennis with us today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, Dennis.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And it is indeed my privilege to host this webinar, and it will be my even greater privilege at the General Assembly in Pittsburgh to nominate the Reverend Grady Parsons for a second four-year term. So I'm delighted to be here today and to welcome everyone also to our presentation. The State Clerk Nominating Committee is composed of a 9-member panel, and these members of the committee were appointed according to the rules, the standing rules, and those rules specify that there shall be 3 members of the committee on the office of the General Assembly, from the office of the General Assembly Committee, one of whom shall serve as moderator, and then one who is nominated by the General Assembly Mission Council, and then 5 at-large members, including a stated clerk of a presbytery, and 4 persons, 2 elders and 2 clergy, from among commissioners who have attended an assembly as commissioners in the past 6 years. The General Assembly Nominating Committee then presents those nominees for election, and we were elected at the last General Assembly. And so here is our group, including Reed Beveridge and Terry Epling, who are both stated clerks in their respective presbyteries, Reed in Delaware and Terry in St. Louis. Melissa Kirkpatrick on the right is a Christian educator. Dan Crable, a pastor in Bozeman, Montana. Eileen Lindner, a pastor in Tenafly, New Jersey. Matthew Schramm is from Bay City, Michigan, and he is the he is the moderator-elect of GA220, and Vincent Thomas is the moderator-elect of the Committee on the Office of the General Assembly. So we were privileged to have both of these folks on our committee, and they were just recently given those new tasks when affirmed by the General Assembly. Judith Wellington is a pastor in New Mexico, and Barbara Murphy of Orange, California, has been our committee assistant. We have met beginning a year ago on a conference call on May 13th. And so we began our work, and we have a set of defined tasks and the timeline that we have to follow in the Standing Rule Section H2. And so among these are that the State Clerk the State Clerk Nominating Committee has to begin its work no later than 300 days before the start of the Assembly. And so we did begin, as I said, a year ago, May, well in advance. September 4th would have been our deadline. And then we posted the position with a deadline for applications of January 2nd, since January 1st fell on a Sunday this past year. Actually, the post office didn't deliver any mail until the 3rd, so we extended it until the 3rd in the final analysis, 180 days before the opening of General Assembly, in order to receive these applications. We were then to declare our nominee no later than May 1st, but we were able to declare our nominee in March after our meeting at Chicago, where we interviewed our candidate. And the rules specify that if there were other applicants who had come through our committee process, they would have been able to stand against the nominee, submitting their desire to do so by May 16th. In this instance, that is not the case, because while we had a number of folks who asked for application packets, we had but one application from the incumbent stated clerk, Grady Parsons. There are a number of things that go into being stated clerk, of course, and some of the things that a person would need to know to apply. A person must be either a teaching or ruling elder. People learn how to apply through posts and through announcements. It was announced at the very first time. It was announced at the Fall Polity Conference, a meeting of all the stated clerks of the synods and the presbyteries and staff people of the middle governing bodies, the middle councils now, as they're known, and also through the media, through Presbyterian news and other media. And potential candidates don't need any endorsements from their presbytery. They simply stand, if they wish, as applying on their own. There are, of course, a number of skills that a stated clerk needs. And while these are called helpful skills, we would probably call them essential skills. A knowledge of the polity of the PCUSA being a very high skill. Absolutely essential is strong faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And then a strong ability to work with all kinds of people across the church and across the world. And an ability to be a non-anxious person in the midst of our usual tensions, which we have across the church, and that's nothing new to any of us. In addition to these, in the job description, which our committee examined and actually suggested a few minor amendments, we definitely asserted that the basic commitment in the job description should be that this person has a strong commitment to Jesus Christ and to the mission of the church as informed by Scripture and the church's confessions and theological positions. And then there are areas of responsibility that the stated clerk has that are probably familiar to everyone. Among them, oversight of the actual meetings of the General Assembly, oversight of maintaining the Constitution, participating as the representative Presbyterian in ecumenical ministries of the world, and then administration on a day-to-day basis of the Office of the General Assembly, which includes oversight of the Historical Society, overseeing and working with the Committee on the Office of General Assembly to approve per capita budgets and to recommend them to the Assembly, and to maintain, I think very important one, to maintain harmonious relations with the Executive Director of the General Assembly Mission Council and with the other 5 agencies of the Presbyterian Church. So those are all things that we felt were essential skills. Now, at the General Assembly, there will be a booklet that will be presented to commissioners. It will be sent out in advance of the Assembly, and in it there will be a photograph with a biographical sketch, a personal statement by the candidate, and a statement regarding the candidate's sense of call to office. That was one of the strongest indicators to our committee through the voice of people we spoke to who were Grady's references, as well as the end-of-term review committee, which performed a review last spring on behalf of the Committee on the Office of the General Assembly, that the candidate, Grady Parsons, has a profound sense of call to the office. We also will find in that booklet that will be presented to all the commissioners responses to a questionnaire developed by our committee on basic issues that are going to be before the church, things that are coming in the form of overtures. For example, that will be in the business of the General Assembly, and so that will be part of the booklet as well. We had to wait until we knew where the church is as far as sending minutes overtures this year, but that'll be part of the booklet. At the General Assembly itself in Pittsburgh, each candidate, well, in this case, our candidate, will be provided a place to meet and talk with commissioners and advisory delegates ahead of the election for a brief time at least, and in this instance, running unopposed, we still felt it was important that Grady have a chance to meet and greet folks who are coming to the Assembly and who will be moving rather rapidly in this instance to the election of the clerk, because the standing rules declare that within 48 hours of the convening of the Assembly, the State Clerk Review Nominating Committee shall place in nomination a single nominee. This is the case whether the person is alone or whether others are standing for election within 48 hours. And then in the event, as in this case, that there are no other nominations, the election proceeds immediately as follows. The nominee for State Clerk shall be given an opportunity to address the Assembly for a time not to exceed 5 minutes, expressing the nominee's views regarding the function and work of the State Clerk. The moderator then inquires of commissioners whether there are questions to be asked of our committee, the State Clerk Nomination Committee. The time allocated for that shall not exceed 15 minutes. And then the moderator shall inquire of commissioners whether there are questions to be asked of the nominee. The time allocated should not exceed 15 minutes, after which voting takes place. So this comes early in the Assembly rather than if it were an opposed nominee, which would have come on the Friday at the end of the General Assembly. This one comes right up at the start of the Assembly. And we are most privileged to announce that our enthusiastic endorsement is for the nomination of Grady Parsons for a second 4-year term. So I think that basically covers the work of our committee as we follow the instructions of the standing rules and met our deadlines, and we're privileged to have a wonderful interview with Grady Parsons for a number of hours in March.
All right, thank you so much, Dennis. That was very helpful. At this time, Dennis is going to answer a few questions that we've received. As a reminder, any questions that we don't get to now will be answered by email as soon as possible. The first question that we're going to take is, it's a good one. Why would someone want to be State Clerk at this time in the life of the PCUSA?
I think that one might have to wonder about the sanity of such a person, and yet what we really endorse and what we really discovered is that this is a call to ministry. And the kind of person the General Assembly wants as its State Clerk is a person who is genuinely, deeply, spiritually called to a ministry of service at this level of the church. And at this time, we believe that Grady Parsons is willing, and not only willing, but is indeed called to follow God's leading in this capacity as State Clerk for another 4 years. We're very grateful for that.
All right, the next question, a few folks were curious about why was there only one applicant?
Well, that's a mystery that we don't know quite how to solve. We're thankful we had one applicant because we don't know, there is no provision in the rules for what would happen if no one applied. And so we were given to ponder that question when January 3rd arrived. We were clear that the deadline was actually a little later than it was originally announced that it was because of the mail service extended to the 3rd. And we did let folks know who had asked for or shown an interest in an application packet that the applications were still open. We let them know up to the very end. But in the final analysis, our sense was that this is God's call. And if God led other people to stand against Grady's nomination at this time, then they would have come forward. But our sense was that he is genuinely called, and we have confidence in God's leading in this matter. So we can't answer the question. It's a very unusual circumstance. We researched the history and found that it's only occurred twice in the memory of our predecessor denominations, and not since our reunion in 1983. But we're grateful to Grady for being willing to serve another 4 years.
All right, thank you, Dennis. The last question we're going to take today is a question about the qualifications for this position. What did the committee feel were the most important qualifications?
I think absolutely the first was a committed Christian who believes deeply in the triune God and is an outspoken and eloquent pastor who is proud to speak of Jesus Christ, his Lord, and of the Spirit's leading. I think that we also believe that it was very important that the candidate have an ability to communicate, and we are very confident in Grady's demonstrated ability to communicate both to the world the mission and vision of the Presbyterian Church USA, and also within the PCUSA family to communicate clearly where we are on issues, what our Constitution says, and so forth. We wanted a sense of humor, and we believe that we have a man who has a sense of humor and a great wit. And we wanted someone who was a calm leader, and we believe that Grady is a non-anxious and calm leader for our times. So we're we were very pleased, and those were the attributes I believe that we were most looking for.
All right, thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing this overview of the complete nomination process, and then what commissioners and advisory delegates can expect when it comes to the election process once we arrive at General Assembly. Thanks for being with us today, Dennis.
Thank you for this privilege.
All right, and thanks to all of you who have joined us today online. Immediately following this webinar, you're going to be asked to complete a brief survey asking you about your experience of today's webinar. We encourage you to take a few minutes to complete that survey. It actually won't even take you a minute. It'll take you 30 seconds. Next week's webinar is on Tuesday, April the 24th. We're going to be offering a collection of media tips and information specifically also for commissioners and advisory delegates on what to expect when it comes to communications you're going to receive from us over the next few months before the Assembly. And so that should be a really helpful and insightful webinar. You'll be receiving an email later this afternoon with registration information as well as info about other upcoming webinars. As a reminder, all webinars are being recorded and are available through the General Assembly website under Orientation Resources. Once again, thanks for joining us, and hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.